Unveiling spiritual truths, who you really are according to the Bible, 3 shocking revelations. In a world already shrouded in chaos, 3 revelations threaten to pull back the very fabric of our reality. What if you discovered you were more than just flesh and bone? That you carry within you secrets untold? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange haze across the sky, a chill ran down the spine of the unsuspecting town of Willow Creek. Locals whispered of strange occurrences in the night, voices echoing from the depths of their own forgotten memories. And then, on the night of the harvest moon, the truth exploded like fireworks in a quiet sky. The first bizarre detail sent shockwaves through the community, the ghostly figure seen wandering the old cemetery at midnight. Some swore they saw a woman, draped in a tattered white gown, her face hidden but eyes burning with ancient wisdom. Whispers amongst the townsfolk hinted at a dark prophecy tied to the very ground they walked on. It was said she spoke of sacred knowledge buried deep within the pages of the Bible, revealing identities meant to be uncovered by FEW.as. The night wore on, the air thick with anticipation. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, causing a collective gasp. The atmosphere crackled with tension, every heartbeat sinking to the pulse of the unknown. Who was she, and what did she know? Perhaps the answers were hidden in the scripture itself. The townspeople felt an insatiable urge to seek the truth, each facing an internal battle of skepticism versus a yearning for enlightenment. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. And then, the air shifted as a new legend emerged, a Bible passage that claimed you were tied to something greater, a divine purpose weaving through your very being. Eyes dimmed with wonder likely filled the crowded cafe where townsfolk gathered, deep in conversation. The anticipation hung heavier than the storm clouds gathering above. What if you were not just a player in your life's story, but rather designed for greatness? The revelations turned darker as a thunderclap echoed ominously. Suppressed fears bubbled to the surface, a nagging thought clawed at the back of everyone's mind: what if these truths brought more harm than good? As the storm finally broke, pouring torrential rain onto the earth, it washed away all certainty, leaving behind an unsettling question: were humans meant to unravel the mysteries hidden within ancient scriptures, or was it a path paved with peril? The rain pounded against roofs and streets, creating a symphony of chaos that drowned out the murmurs of concern and intrigue flowing through Willow Creek. As the townsfolk huddled in cafes and homes, each face told a story of fear mixed with curiosity. Many had never given much thought to spiritual matters, but now they could feel the weight of destiny clinging to them like a heavy fog. In the warm glow of the cafe, Sarah, a resident known for her skeptical nature, gripped her coffee cup tightly, her knuckles white against the heat. She had heard tales of the spectral woman. Some laughed them off as mere fables, but tonight, the air was electric, buzzing with a sense of urgency she couldn't quite shake. Did you hear about the old cemetery last night? Tom, an unreliable yet enthusiastic gossip, leaned in, eyes wide. They say she spoke. People claim she told them things about their lives. About purpose. The chatter was relentless, words tumbling over one another, drowning out reason. But Sarah felt a pull at her heart, a strange sensation that perhaps beneath the fabric of disbelief, something extraordinary was waiting to be acknowledged. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the cemetery, shadows twisted and turned as the apparition's presence grew stronger with the rise of the harvest moon. The pale woman drifted among the cracked headstones, a whisper of ancient truths spilling from her lips into the still night air. You are more than mere mortals. Seek the truth, and you shall know your identity. Back at the cafe, the group gathered around a table, some exchanging fearful glances while others were mesmerized by the prospect of deep revelation. Just as Sarah started to voice her doubt, the ground beneath them trembled, a deep rumble that made the coffee cups rattle ominously. The lights flickered and dimmed, throwing the room into a haunting chiaroscuro. What was that? A voice yelped, panic surging among the patrons. Stay calm. Sarah called out, though her heart raced, adrenaline pulsing through her veins. Was this a warning? Was the spirit trying to communicate something vital? Outside, the rain fell heavier, as if the sky itself was spitting back in fury. In the distance, someone shouted, "The cemetery." The delicate balance of fear and hope tilted as a fresh wave of terror swept through the café. The townspeople were drawn to the heart of the mystery, a magnet pulling them toward darkness and perhaps toward discovery. Bolstered by an unexplainable conviction, Sarah stood up, her breath shaky but resolute. We need to go there. We need to find out what she knows. A collective murmur traveled through the group as they rose from their seats, urgency outweighing their trepidation. Side by side, they stumbled out into the rain, hearts pounding like the drums of destiny, their breath hung in the air, mingling with the chill that bit at their skin. As they approached the cemetery, that infamous whispering followed them like a shadow, promising revelations yet unshared. What would they uncover as they stepped into the darkness? Would the truth they discovered elevate their existence, or would it shatter the fragile sense of reality they had clung to? But just as they reached the iron gates, a chilling scream pierced the night, echoing through the air. What had they awakened? The answers lay just beyond the threshold. The scream hung in the air, a visceral echo that wrapped around Sarah's heart like a vice. She hesitated, her body frozen as dread lanced through the group. The darkness of the cemetery loomed before them, every shadow whispering fears that had festered deep within. Did you hear that? A young woman murmured, her voice trembling. It made Sarah's skin crawl. They had stepped into something dark and twisted, where secrets lay buried with the dead. Maybe it's just an animal, Tom suggested, though his shaky tone betrayed his uncertainty. No, Sarah whispered back, feeling the weight of unseen eyes watching them from graves long forgotten. That sounded human. With a heartbeat racing like thunder, Sarah took the lead. Every step toward the cemetery gates felt like walking into a mouth ready to swallow them whole. The iron bars creaked ominously as they pulled the gate open, sending another shiver down Sarah's spine. A low mist curled around their feet, swirling and shifting as if alive. Outside, the rain battered down with furious intensity, but here, the air was unnaturally still. The remnants of heat from the cafe faded quickly, replaced by biting cold that seeped into their bones. Are we really doing this? Someone whispered behind her. It was Mark, his voice shaky but determined. Yes. Sarah replied with a fierce intensity. We need to face whatever this is. We can't turn back now. As the group ventured deeper, they could make out the faint outlines of the gravestones. And then, in a break of the gray clouds, the moonlight illuminated a figure standing amidst the stones. The spectral woman, as pale as the fog around them, breathed deeply, her lips moving in a silent chant that sent frigid chills through the air. What is she saying? Another voice gasped. I don't know, but we should get closer. Sarah felt the pull again, like a magnet, urging her forward. They crept closer, an unspoken agreement binding them. As they drew near, they could hear the ghostly whispers more clearly, a haunting song weaving through the darkness. It felt like an invitation laced with danger. You must uncover the truth. The woman's wraith-like voice sang, echoing eerily back from the stones. Only then will you understand your fate. Suddenly, Sarah caught sight of something at the base of the woman's feet. A shimmering object glinted through the fog. It looked like an old locket, pulsating faintly like a living heartbeat. The air grew heavy, thickening with expectation. Just as she reached out to grasp it, the woman's figure flickered, her expression shifting from serene to wild desperation. Beware. The truth comes at a price. The ground rumbled again, this time more forcefully, sending vibrations up Sarah's legs. Panic erupted within the group, voices overlapping in chaos. Someone gasped, pointing just beyond the figure. Shadows began to peel away from the gravestones, transforming into dark, writhing shapes that twisted with malice. Run! Tom shouted, eyes wide with terror, but Sarah felt riveted, caught between the allure of the truth and the terror threatening to swallow them whole. "Wait!" she screamed, but her voice was lost in the frenzy of retreat. They stumbled back, pushing through the iron gates, slamming them shut just as a shriek burst forth from the shadows behind them. "What did we just unleash?" Mark gasped, trembling. As the safety of the cafe loomed closer with every panicked step, Sarah realized that the ghost had spoken true. The answers lay buried beneath their feet, but the threat of exposing those truths lingered like the oppressive storm swirling above. With the spirit's words echoing in her mind, a chilling thought settled in: the darkness is only beginning. What revelation awaited them next, now that they had stirred the restless souls of Willow Creek? The cafe was a sanctuary, warmth flooding its wooden floors as they burst inside, hearts hammering against their ribs. The bright lights flickered overhead, mocking the darkness they'd just escaped. As the door clicked shut, Sarah leaned heavily against it, chest heaving, her eyes scanning the faces of her friends. "What just happened?" Mark managed, his voice shaky, straining against the backdrop of brewing storm clouds outside. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her gaze flicking to Tom and the others. They were pale, eyes wide with terror, and the time spent in the cemetery clung to them like dried mud. The feeling of dread seeped back in, prickling at her skin. She couldn't shake off the ghost's warning. "We need to figure this out. We can't let this go. We stirred something. Those shadows, they felt alive. And maybe we should call the police." A small voice piped up from Annabelle, her hands trembling. "What are we going to tell them?" Sarah countered. "That we went to a cemetery and heard a ghost. They'll think we're crazy." Tom rubbed his temples, clearly overwhelmed. "We can't just sit here. We need answers, or at least to know if there's more," he said, each word heavy with dread. A moment of silence thickened the air. Then the question loomed in everyone's mind, unspoken but powerful: what was the price of the truth? Mark shifted uncomfortably. "What about the locket?" "You were reaching for it when his words trailed off, and fear widened in his eyes." "The locket!" Sarah exclaimed, snapping her fingers. "Maybe it has something to do with the ghost's warning. You think it could have links to the deaths?" "Maybe the woman is trying to tell us something," Tom mused, the intrigue lighting a spark beneath his fear. "Do you think it has the power to control whatever we unleashed?" Annabelle asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Whatever it is, we need to find out." Determination surged through Sarah. The truth was buried in that cemetery, tangled up with the spirits that they de-provoked. But how? Mark asked, panic bubbling just below the surface. "We could be risking more than we understand." "We'll have to go back," Sarah sighed, letting the weight of her decision wash over her. It wasn't just about curiosity, it was about how far they could go without falling apart, and how close they could come to confronting the darkness. Tom clenched his fists. "If we do this, we have to stay together. No one goes off alone. Not again. What if it's too late?" Annabelle's eyes glistened with tears, and Sarah felt her own resolve flickering. "Then we make it right," Sarah said, the words tasting like steel on her tongue. "We owe it to whoever those shadows belong to." The group nodded, a shared understanding binding them together, despite the fear that throbbed in their hearts. Together, they had come this far, together, they would seek the truth. But as they gathered their courage, a cold wind howled outside, rattling the windows and turning the atmosphere heavier. Sarah caught sight of movement in the reflection of a window back at the cemetery. The figure stood watching, saying nothing. "What if the truth isn't what we think?" Mark's voice faltered. "What if it leads us down a path of no return?" Tom added, swallowing hard, with their minds racing and the shadows of doubt deepening. Sarah's heart thudded in time with another silent scream echoing through her thoughts. Would they uncover the truth, or had they already sealed their fate? In the looming silence, the darkness wrapped around them again, and a single thought shone bright in Sarah's mind: what if the spirits wanted more than just to be remembered? As the realization settled, a creeping dread slithered through the room, whispering promises of revelations yet to come. The cafe door creaked open again, sending a gust of frigid air swirling amongst them. The chill pressed against their skin, stealing their warmth, their resolve. Sarah shivered but stood her ground, pushing herself off the door, her eyes locking onto the group. They were teetering on the edge of something monumental, and she couldn't back down now. "Okay, we need a plan," she said, forcing the tremor from her voice as she glanced at each friend. "We can't just head back to that cemetery without knowing what we're up against." Tom looked around, glancing at the half-empty coffee cups on the table, the remnants of disbelief etched across everybody's faces. "Can we even trust that locket? It brought them out. What if it's tied to something much darker?" Annabelle's hands trembled as she clutched her cup, the ceramic warm against her fingers. "If we do this, what if we wake something worse? How do we even know it's safe?" Her voice hitched as anxiety wrapped around her words like vines. "Nothing is safe anymore," Mark muttered, his brow furrowing. "We already did the damage. Whatever we disturbed is waiting, and it won't rest until it gets what it wants." A deep silence fell, thick and suffocating, like the fog that rolled into the cemetery. Flashes of the spectral figure flickered in Sarah's mind, saturated with dread. What did it want from them? "We have to research." Sarah started but was interrupted by a loud bang outside that set their hearts racing. The cafe's door swung open again as if influenced by something unseen. The wind howled louder, keys jingling, drawing everyone's eyes to the empty road. Panic flickered in Mark's eyes. What if it followed us? "No." Sarah snapped, fighting to keep control. "We can't fall apart. Let us think this through." Taking a deep breath, she pressed her palms together, drawing courage from within. "You weren't alone out there. You all felt it too, right? Whatever we experienced, it was real." Tom nodded slowly, his palms braced on the table. "But what does it want?" Sarah leaned closer, lowering her voice. "In that graveyard, I felt a pull toward the locket. It wasn't just a trinket, it was like a key. Keys can unlock doors or unleash things. What if the locket calls to them? What if it connects the past to our present?" Annabelle whispered, anxiously glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone or something to appear. "Then we go back." Sarah's voice was firm. "I need to know why it called to me. Why it's so powerful." Her heart raced as determination surged. "We can't live in fear forever. But we need to go back prepared." Mark lingered on her words, pushing the remnants of his coffee away. "What do we even take? I can't face a ghost with just a flashlight and a cell phone. Maybe we find something to communicate. Something that gives them control." Tom's voice was urgent, his eyes brimming with resolve. "What if we take a psychic?" Annabelle offered, her hands now steadying against the table. Sarah raised her eyebrows, considering. "That could work, but do we even trust a psychic? This could be a trap." The room felt electric, charged with their collective anxiety as they debated. Shadows seemed to linger just beyond the reach of the lights. Each flickering bulb overhead echoed the perilous situation they found themselves in. As ideas bounced around, the cold breeze flirted with the edges of their minds, wrapping a fingernail grip of anxiety around their sanity. "What if we just—" A crash from the bathroom interrupted Sarah, drawing their attention completely. Glass shattered, and a low moan echoed, sounding almost human. "What?" Annabelle gasped, eyes wide in terror. "Stay here!" Tom shouted, instinctively reaching for Sarah's hand, pulling her back as they all fell silent, straining to hear the sounds coming from the back. As they listened, another voice rose, a whisper brushing past them like a chilling reminder of the shadows they faced. I know." The shadows flickered again, and all eyes turned towards the dim hallway leading to the restrooms, where darkness deepened with every moment lost in uncertainty. Sarah's heart thumped against her chest like a drum, urging her forward, battling against the paralyzing fear. Is it coming? Is it looking for us? Or something else? The question hung heavy between them, each life pulse rattled by the dreamlike resonance that beckoned them closer to that bathroom door. With a shaky breath, Sarah stepped forward, her heart resolute. We need to see. We need to discover who, or what, truly wants us. But as they approached, a sickening wave of cold engulfed them like an embrace from the grave, and a chilling voice rang out, echoing through the cafe, you should have stayed away. What awaited them beyond that threshold? The moment hung in the air, thick with tension as the words echoed, melding with the low hum of the cafe's ancient heating system. A flurry of anxiety rushed through Sarah, hair standing on end as terror wrapped its fingers around her spine. She exchanged glances with her friends, each of them was pale, breaths shallow and quick, their eyes wide and searching. Did you hear that? Annabelle's voice trembled, barely audible over the sound of their racing hearts. Yeah, and I don't think it was just the wind, Tom replied, his voice low and shaky. Maybe it's not just a voice. Maybe it's a warning, Mark added, unease rippling through him. He rocked back and forth on his heels, glancing nervously toward the dark hallway. Every instinct screamed for them to turn back, but the allure of the unknown gripped Sarah hard. We need to confront this. We can't just step back into the shadows. The sound of muffled footsteps echoed from the restroom, a shuffling noise that drew closer. It felt like the air had thickened, pressing down on them. Shadows stretched and warped along the walls as a flickering light caused them to dance in panic. Then the bathroom door swung open. Light spilled out, illuminating a figure standing there, a woman, disheveled, with wild hair and eyes that held grief as deep as the ocean. She appeared neither wholly alive nor completely a ghost, something detached and pale haunted her features. Help me, she rasped, choking on the words as if they were too heavy, too burdened to escape her lips. A jolt ripped through Sarah. Who are you? She asked, stepping forward despite Tom's sharp intake of breath behind her, but the woman only shook her head, her lips trembling. You don't understand. They're coming. The restless ones that cannot rest. She took a frail step forward, and Sarah instinctively took a step back. The urge to flee surged, but curiosity held her rooted. Restless? Who? Annabelle's voice quivered, barely loud enough to pierce the suffocating silence. From the graves. The woman cried, gesturing wildly as her eyes darted around the room. You awakened them. You must leave. Do not confront what you do not understand. Wait. What do you mean? Sarah pressed, heart racing, wildfire of dread consuming her senses. But the woman's expression shifted, desperation overtaking her as she cried, I have seen their faces. They are trapped and angry, and they will claim you as their own. In that moment, the cafe lights flickered violently, plunging them into darkness for a split second before their glow returned, illuminating a reality that felt eerily distorted. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around them like chains, threading through the very air, carrying past emotions, pain, and longing. Mark, voice trembling as if caught in a grip of fear, tried to pull Sarah back. We shouldn't. This is wrong. But Sarah met his gaze, resolve hardening in her chest. We can't walk away. We have to know what we're dealing with. The woman's expression morphed into something mournful, tears brimming in her eyes. You cannot help them. They will reach for you, and then you will be lost. Just then, a heavy thud sounded from the rear exit like a knock at the door that no one wanted to hear. Goosebumps erupted on Sarah's skin. What was that? She breathed, anxiety swelling in her throat as she turned to the door. Let us get out of here. Tom urged, voice tight. But it was too late. The clattering grew louder, a monstrous force thrumming as if something was trying to break through. And the woman seemingly merging with the shadows screamed, run. They've found you. A sickening dread consumed them, and the urge to flee surged through Sarah like an electric current. Yet, drawn by an uncontrollable urge, she hesitated, eyes scanning the room one last time. Stay with me, she whispered to her friends, the weight of the moment crashing upon them. But just as she tightened her grip on Tom's hand, the bathroom door swung open wider, spilling darkness into the cafe. It felt alive, a pulse of something dark and ancient. Now they come, the woman uttered, her voice now a haunting whisper lost in the chaos. Before dissipating into the gathering shadows, inside her, something clicked, a realization smashing into her thoughts like a storm. We can't run. What if we can control it? And as those words slipped from her lips, something shifted in the air. A chill whispered through them, setting their nerves ablaze. What did you just suggest? Mark asked, voice barely audible, but before she could respond, the room quaked, the lights shuddering as voices surged around them. You should have stayed away, and Sarah understood they were about to cross a line they might never return from. Would they finally uncover the truth, or become a part of the dark history they had unwittingly awakened? What happens next? The walls of the cafe trembled, vibrating against the chaos that filled the air. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, a wild drumbeat echoing the crackling energy that enveloped them. The words of the woman lingered heavily in her mind. They've found you. Sarah. Tom shouted, the panic bursting forth, we need to leave now. His grip tightened, but Sarah barely felt him. A rush of adrenaline coursed through her, driving her feet forward. No. We can't. Not yet. She snapped back, fueled by a determination she didn't understand. The shadows were alive, swirling and beckoning from the darkened restroom, and she felt an inexplicable connection pull her closer. What are you doing? Annabelle grasped for Sarah's arm, eyes wide with fear. We can't face whatever that is. It's here already. Mark's voice rasped, shaking as he inched backward toward the door. The unseen force pressed in, suffocating their surroundings, and the whispers grew, rising with an intensity that clawed at their sanity. Stay, join us. A line in the floor had been drawn. With every breath they took, Sarah felt it slip away, an essential piece of her fading into the encroaching darkness. Look! She pointed toward the bathroom, her voice rising above the cacophony. The shadows danced as if alive, writhing in a grotesque waltz. Fleeting images popped before her eyes, faces twisted in torment, hollow eyes filled with anger. They were trapped. Those faces, could they be? Sarah's heart sank. Was this what the woman had meant? Each face seemed to scream a silent plea, and she felt their desperation run through her veins. They were here before. They're stuck in this place, waiting for someone or something. No. Tom yelled, cutting through her thoughts. You're not thinking straight. We need to get out. But his words felt hollow. It was as if the cafe itself was holding them hostage, drawing them into its gloomy past. What if we could give them peace? Sarah whispered, the idea sparking with a dangerous allure. What if we could confront their pain? Mark shook his head, eyes pleading. You're not serious. You'd risk everything for them. They could destroy us. Just then, a wall of sound crashed over them, shattering any resolve. The noise swelled like a monstrous wave, crashing upon their logic. More knocks, louder this time, rumbled from the back door, each thud like the heartbeat of something ancient and furious. Help us. The fragmented whispers seemed almost human, each voice weaving into a tapestry of despair. Release us. They were drowning in uncertainty. Between the air thick with unearthly dread and the desperate, sorrowful cries, a choice lay suspended in the gravity of the moment. Sarah, don't. Annabelle's face contorted with worry. We don't know what. But Sarah's thoughts drifted back to the woman. What if she was right? What if we are their only chance? The metaphorical barrier of fear cracked as hope glimmered like a flickering candle. I can't stand by while they suffer. Stepping away from her friends, Sarah felt a strange calm settle over her. We can't let fear dictate our fate. It's time for us to confront this darkness. A deep rumble echoed from the shadows, reverberating through the furniture, vibrating beneath their feet. She turned back to face Tom, Mark, and Annabelle, a fierce steely glint in her eyes. Are you with me? She asked, heart pounding. Mark opened his mouth to protest, but then hesitated, uncertainty swimming in his gaze. Tom glanced nervously between them, his resolve wavering. "Do you really believe we can help them?" Annabelle's voice trembled, hope tugging at her. In that moment, shadows shifted ominously, and darkness erupted like a tidal wave, drowning out the light. "Stay!" It thundered from beyond the darkness, the sound a low growl that sent ice running through their veins. As the chaos reached its peak, the ground quaked beneath them, splitting the air with an intensity that felt primordial. Sarah took a step forward, onward into the abyss of the restroom where the shadows beckoned with a life of their own. "Let us find out," she whispered breathily, just as the dark door swelled wide open, ready to consume them all. It felt inevitable. Would they confront the restless souls or become entangled in their tragic story? But just then, the cacophony fell silent, and a piercing scream shattered the still. It was coming from deeper within the cafe, what lay beyond that threshold. The scream echoed like a banshee's wail, piercing the tension thickening the air. Sarah froze, heart hammering wildly. A cold sweat trickled down her back as murmurs among her friends faded into an uneasy hush. "Did you hear that?" Mark's voice trembled. "The bathroom," Annabelle whispered, eyes wide, darting between the shadowy doorway and Sarah. "Something's happening in there." Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself, the weight of the moment pressing down like a heavy fog. The urge to retreat clawed at her, but the pull of the shadows was stronger. "We have to go," she breathed, her determination melding with fear. Tom stepped closer, his brow furrowed. What if it's a trap? What if this is what they want? They're suffering." Sarah shot back, her voice quaking. "We can't just leave them. It's our only chance." Silence wrapped around them like a blanket, the cafe itself holding its breath. The door trembled, groaning under an invisible weight, and the room went dark. Even the shadows seemed to retreat for a heartbeat. Then, with a rush, the darkness surged back, wrapping tendrils around their legs, pulling them toward the haunting void beyond the restroom. Sarah stumbled, caught off balance, but instinct kicked in and she pushed forward, her curiosity winning against the fear. "Sarah!" Mark shouted, panic spilling from him. "Don't!" But she was beyond his reach, caught in the relentless tide. With every step, the air thickened, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something unnameable. As she crossed the threshold, the light of the cafe vanished entirely, swallowed by an abyss so deep it felt like entering a chasm of despair. "Stay!" The shriek came again, this time resonating with desperation that sent a chill down her spine. The restroom appeared transformed, a mirror of twisted reality. The walls pulsed with a faint, ghostly glow, illuminating the anguished faces from before, now floating suspended in the dark. Each face twisted in agony, mouths opened in silent screams, reaching out towards her, begging for release. "I can't hold them back." Tom's voice broke through the stunning tableau, fear clawing at him. "Then don't." Sarah yelled back, her heart racing faster. "We need to help them." As she stepped deeper into the room, a cacophony of voices surged, a tide of sorrow crashing against her senses. It drowned out her reason, her will to withdraw. Each voice beckoned with a familiar pain, one that thrummed within her own heart. "Sarah, please!" Annabelle cried, on the outskirts, her own frame trembling as she subconsciously moved back. "We can't save them. What if they take you too? Don't you see?" Sarah argued, an edge to her voice. "They're trapped. Just like we could be. If I can feel their pain, maybe it's to help them find peace." But Annabelle's protests fell on deaf ears. Sarah felt something shift deep within her. The faces began to merge into one singular figure, a woman with kind eyes, the very one who had spoken to them moments ago. "Help us!" Her voice resounded like a haunting melody, pulling at Sarah's core. The ground shook again, and the air crackled, heavy with an overwhelming energy. "Release us!" It thundered again, filled with anguish and power, causing Sarah to falter. Just then, the walls shook as if the very foundations of reality were cracking. The door behind her thudded, rattling as if an invisible force pounded against it, testing the feeble barrier. "Coming!" A voice called out from the back of the cafe, strong and commanding, breaking through the howling chaos. And in that moment, light began to filter in around the edges of the bathroom door, vibrant and alive, pushing against the darkness. Who was that voice? And would they come to aid or amplify the horror? The shadows quivered restlessly, and Sarah felt the weight of destiny settle on her shoulders. The choice was becoming clearer, and the moment was narrowing. Would she step into the light or be consumed by the darkness, what lay on the other side? The darkness pulsated like a living thing, closing in on Sarah. Her heart raced, a relentless drumbeat in her ears, drowning out the chaotic chorus of ethereal cries. Yet, the voice from the cafe lingered, growing louder against the chaos. "Step away from the door." The command felt solid, grounding, cutting through the shadows that sought to pull her under. She dared to glance backward, catching a glimpse of her friends through the narrow crack of the door. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with fear, each one a reflection of her own inner turmoil. "What is happening?" Mark shouted, his voice cracking. "I don't know." Sarah yelled back, unwilling to let fear dictate her actions. Her fingers brushed against the cool, uneven wall of the restroom, seeking some sort of anchor. "But we have to help them." "Help who?" Annabelle pleaded, tears glimmering under the strange light. "They're not our friends anymore. They're trapped." Sarah cut in fiercely, the intensity sparking a flame of resolve within her. She turned her attention back to the glowing faces, their expressions twisted in desperation. "I can feel them. They need us." The twisted reality seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting as if it were alive. Her vision blurred momentarily, then sharpened. The spectral woman's eyes were locked onto hers, pleading. "Only you can free us. Only you hold the key." The ground shook violently beneath her. Tom's shout broke above the din. "Sarah! Get back! It's too dangerous." But with each plea, Sarah felt the heat of courage lining her spine. "We can't turn back. You have to trust me." Every word felt woven with a fervent urgency, a truth that felt right deep within her bones. In that moment, another surge of light erupted from behind the door, cascading golden rays that pierced through the shadows. Sarah gasped, momentarily blinded, but as her vision cleared, she spotted a figure standing steadfast, defiant against the brightness. It was a man, tall and imposing, with a look of fierce determination etched across his face. "Get everyone out!" he shouted, voice unwavering, strength emanating from his presence. None of her friends moved. Faces contorted with dread, they were locked in a silent battle with impending dread. She turned back to the spirit woman, her heart racing with the need for connection. "I won't leave you." Sarah cried out, desperate to break the invisible shackle binding her. The woman reached forward, her ghostly form flickering as the light threatened to engulf her. "Find the truth within, break the cycle." Outside, chaos erupted as Mark grabbed Annabelle. "We have to go. Now." "No." Sarah shouted, a primal scream wrenched from her throat. "I won't abandon her, any of them." Just then, a deafening crash echoed and the eerily glowing restroom walls began to crack, deep fissures tearing through the surface like a fragile egg ready to shatter. The faces screamed louder, the cacophony drowning her thoughts. Suddenly, the door burst open, flooding the room with light. The man who had called out stepped forward, reaching for Sarah. "This way. You can't let them pull you in." But her legs wavered, caught in the gravitational pull of the trapped souls. The spirit woman's voice ghosted through her mind. "You are stronger than this darkness." And in that instant, everything slowed. The world around her faded until only she and the woman remained, lost in a moment of understanding. It became clear that this wasn't just about freeing the spirits, it was about breaking herself free from the chains of her past. Could she face the truth of who she was? The realization sent a jolt of energy through her, igniting the fire deep in her chest. "I can do this," she declared, pulling herself from the brink of despair. She turned toward the light, reaching out, gripping the courage blooming within. The shadows writhed in protest, but she took another step forward, driven undeniable towards the warmth. Would the truth shatter her, or would it empower her to unleash the tormented spirits? The woman's face shifted, morphing into something unrecognizable, her essence crackling with raw energy. Then, just as they locked gazes, the woman released a final whisper, "Unlock the door to what lies beneath." As the light wrapped around Sarah, the chamber shook violently, promising change, but would she be ready? What lay on the other side of that truth? The room erupted in chaos, darkness swirling around Sarah like a tempest. She could feel the weight of the trapped souls pulling at her, whispering tales of despair and longing. But the brilliant light emanating from the doorway warmed her skin, igniting a spark of determination deep in her chest. She turned to face it, letting the pull of courage override the clutches of fear. "Together!" she shouted, her voice stronger now, resonating like a bullhorn, cutting through the shrieks of anguish. "We have to do this together." Her friends hesitated, torn between terror and the desperate need to believe. "Sarah, you don't know what you're doing," Mark yelled, his eyes wide with panic, but she could see the flicker of bravery in him, battling against the fear that threatened to consume him. Drawing in a breath, Sarah stood tall. "The voices, they're trying to tell us something. They need us to help them find peace." She strained to reach the spirit woman's outstretched hand, the flickering light illuminating her sorrowful visage. The air thickened, the shadows writhing as if alive. From out of the spiraling abyss, the spectral figure emerged, vibrant despite her ethereal nature. "You must confront the truth," the woman declared. "It is the only way to liberate us." Emboldened by the urgency of that moment, Sarah took a bold step forward, her friends instinctively moving toward her. "They're not here to hurt us, they just want to be heard." As they advanced, the relentless darkness knocked against them like waves crashing against the shore, yet they pressed on, grabbing hands, the chain of unity anchoring any fleeting doubts. The bathroom door loomed ahead like a portal to another realm, and just then, they heard it, a soft, pleading melody rising up from the chaos. "Unlock the door to what lies beneath." It resonated through them like a heartbeat, pulsing with promise and risk. "Feel that?" Sarah's voice shook slightly, revealing the vulnerability masked by her resolve. "Yes," Tom shouted back, shutting his eyes for a moment as if the words were a lifeline. They were all terrified but pulled together by the gravity of the moment. Each face mirrored a mix of fear and unyielding determination. "Let us do this," Mark breathed, locking eyes with Sarah. "Whatever it takes." They exchanged a nod, determination forging a bond stronger than the darkness that encroached. Together, they stepped into the ethereal light, surging forward. As the cosmic energy enveloped them, the world around them shimmered brightly before them. At that threshold between chaos and clarity, in an instant, they were standing in a swirling void, a blank expanse where light and shadow battled for supremacy. It felt disorienting, yet the essence of the ghostly woman pulsed like a beacon. "Release us." The multitude of voices surged together, each cry more desperate than the last. Sarah felt overwhelmed, yet instead of succumbing to fear, she whispered, "We hear you. We will help." The spectral woman appeared again, her form more defined, ethereal radiance spilling forth like morning light piercing through an overcast sky. "The truth holds the key," she instructed, her voice echoing through the void. Digging deep, Sarah closed her eyes, channeling all the love, anger, sorrow, and hope she had ever felt, gathering it like energy preparing for ignition. "I will not shy away from the truth of this existence," she declared, her voice echoing defiantly against the wall of darkness. Suddenly, it was as if chains began to break. Cracks spider webbed across the shadows, pulling apart the fabric of despair. She felt the weight of something shift, the trapped souls weaving together in an ethereal tapestry of release. "Help us!" they chorused, a unifying plea that resonated deeply within her. She took a deep breath, focusing all her will into the moment, calling forth the strength of her friends. "Together!" she cried out, certainty swelling. A brilliant light burst forth from within, illuminating the void as if the sun itself had breached the horizon unrelenting. The resonating voices transformed into chords of harmony, echoing their release. Each strand of light was an entity reclaiming its freedom, flying high like fireflies, dancing in excitement as they shimmered into the cosmic sky. "Thank you," the spectral woman said, her expression visibly calming with gratitude. "You have set us free." In that moment, tranquility washed over them, drowning out the despair that had clung to their existence for so long. As the darkness unraveled and peace enveloped their souls, Sarah felt an immense weight lift. "We did it," she breathed, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks, mingling with laughter from her friends. "Let us go home," Tom suggested, his voice steadying with the rising dawn. They turned back towards the glowing doorway, walking side by side into the light. Emerging from the restroom, they stepped back into the cafe where time seemed to stand still, familiar warmth greeting them. They were alive, united, and whole. And as they let the door close behind them, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had truly transitioned into a new chapter. Each of them knew what they had faced in the depths of their shared anxiety. They unraveled ancient bonds and broken cycles that had shackled those spirits. Their hearts echoed with the truth that had been revealed, a truth stitched into the fabric of their lives, unrelenting and radiant. In the aftermath of completion, Sarah caught her reflection in the warbling glass, seeing herself anew, a warrior forged in strength and vulnerability. They were all reborn in this moment, connected by the understanding of who they were meant to be, and as the sun broke with blinding splendor, painting the town of Willow Creek in hues of gold and hope, Sarah suddenly realized that though the journey had tested their limits and courage, it was also a spark to ignite futures beyond mere existence. Willow Creek would remember, not just the ghostly tales that lingered in the cemetery, but the realization that they were alive, purposeful, and importantly more than a collection of flesh and bone. In that sunrise, Sarah and her friends stepped boldly into their new lives, knowing they had faced darkness and emerged into the light, ready to share the story of liberation, connection, and hope. But as they left the cafe that morning, a soft breeze whispered through the trees, hinting at all the mysteries yet to be discovered, and reminding them that the past would always echo in the hearts of those willing to listen. The adventure had just begun. Now that you've reached the end of this thrilling journey, don't keep it to yourself. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that'll keep you hanging on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now. Every single click feeds the algorithm and helps us grow. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about what you think is next. We want to hear you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the word together.